Hello, fellow Americans. This is Mr. Steffler. I'm coming to you from room 111, and I'm going to read Trails West and the Texas Revolution. The names and terms are Jedediah Smith, Mountain Men, Jim Beckworth, Land Speculator, Santa Fe Trail, Oregon Trail, Mormon, Brigham Young. Main idea: thousands of settlers followed the trails through the West to gain land and a chance to make a fortune. Why it matters now. This migration brought Americans to territories that became New Mexico, Oregon, and Utah. One American story. The mountain men. Jedediah Smith was leading an expedition to find a route through the Rocky Mountains when a grizzly bear attacked. The bear seized Smith's head in his mouth and shredded his face, partially tore off one ear. Smith's men chased the bear away. Jim Clayman recalled the scene. I asked Smith what was best. He said, one or two go for water. If you have a needle and thread, get it out and sew up my wounds around my head. I told him I could do nothing for his ear. Oh, you must try to stitch it up some way or another, he said. I put in my needle and stitched it through and through. 10 days after the attack, Smith was ready to go continue exploring. The following spring, he found what he was looking for, a pass through the Rocky Mountains. Jedediah Smith was one of the daring trappers and explorers known as the Mountain Men. The Mountain Men opened up the West by discovering the best trails through the Rocky Mountains. Later, thousands of pioneers followed these trails. In this section, you will learn about the trails and why the people went west. Mountain Men and the Rendezvous. Mountain men survived by being tough and resourceful. They spent most of the year trapping small animals such as beavers. Easterners wanted beaver fur to make men's hats that were in fashion at the time. To obtain the furs, mountain men roamed the Great Plains in the far west, the region between the Mississippi River and the Pacific Ocean. They set traps in icy mountain streams. Because of their adventures, mountain men such as Jedediah Smith and Jim Beckworth became famous as rugged loners. However, they were not as independent as the legends portrayed them. Instead, they correctly connected economically to businessmen who bought their fur. One businessman, William Henry Ashley, created a system of trading arrangement called the rendezvous system. Under this system, individual trappers came to a pre-arranged site for a rendezvous with traders from the east. The trappers brought supplies from the traders and paid them in fur. The rendezvous took place every summer from 1825 to 1840. In that year, silk hats replaced beaver hats as the fashion, and the fur trade died out. Rendezvous, meeting, from a French word meaning present yourselves. Mountain men opened up the West. During the height of the fur trade, mountain men worked some streams so heavily that they killed off the animals. This forced the trappers to search for new streams where the beaver lived. The mountain men's explorations provided America with some of the earliest first-hand knowledge of the far west. This knowledge and the trails the mountain men blazed made it possible for later pioneers to move west. For example, thousands of pioneers used the South Pass, a wide valley through the Rockies that Jedediah Smith had publicized. Smith learned of the path in the present-day Wyoming from Native Americans. Unlike the northern passes used by Lewis and Clark, the South Pass was low, so snow did not block it as often as it blocked the higher passes. Also, because the South Pass was wide and less steep, wagons could run through it. Smith wrote to his brother that he wanted to help people in need. It was for that I go for days without eating and am pretty well satisfied if I can gather a few roots and a few snails and a piece of horse flesh or fine roasted dog. Jim Beckworth, 1798 through 1867. Jim Beckworth was born in slavery and set free by his owner. At age 25, Beckworth joined a group of fur traders going west. In time, he became a daring mountain man. For several years, Beckworth lived with the Crow tribe. Later, he worked as an army scout and a gold prospector. In 1850, he discovered a mountain pass that became the route of the present day into present-day Northern California. This pass is called the Beckworth Pass. The lure of the West. Few of the people who went west shared Smith's noble motive. To many, the West, with its vast stretches of land, offered a golden chance to make money. The Louisiana Purchase had doubled the size of the United States, and some Americans wanted to take the land away from the Native Americans who inhabited this territory. People called land speculators bought huge areas of land. To speculate means to buy something in the hope that it will increase in value. If land value did go up, speculators divided the land holdings into smaller sections. They made great profits by selling those sections to thousands of settlers who dreamed of owning their own farms. Manufacturers and merchants soon followed the settlers west. They hoped to earn money by making and selling items that farmers needed. Other people made the trip to find jobs or to escape people whom they owed money. The trail to Santa Fe. Traders also traveled in search of markets. After Mexico gained independence from Spain in 1821, it opened its borders to American traders, whom Spain had kept out. In response, the Missouri trader William Becknell set out with hardware, cloth, and china for Santa Fe, the capital of the Mexican province of New Mexico. By doing so, he opened the Santa Fe Trail, which led from Missouri to Santa Fe. Once in Santa Fe, he made large profits and became the New Mexican because the New Mexicans were eager to buy his new merchandise. When Becknell returned to Missouri weeks later, a curious crowd met him. One man picked up Becknell's bag and slit it with a knife. As gold and silver coins spilled onto the street, the onlookers gasped. The news spread that New Mexico was a place where traders could become rich. The following spring, Becknell headed to Santa Fe again. This time, he loaded his trade goods in covered wagons, which Westerners called prairie schooners. Their billowing white canvas tops made them look like schooners or sailing ships. Becknell could not haul these wagons over the mountain pass that he used on the first trip to Santa Fe. Instead, he found a cutoff, a shortcut that avoided the steep slopes but passed through a deadly desert to the south. As the traders crossed the burning sands, they ran out of water. Crazed by thirst, they lopped off mules' ears and killed their dogs to drink the animals' blood. Finally, the men found the stream. The water saved them from death, and they reached Santa Fe. Becknell returned home with another huge profit. Before long, hundreds of traders and prairie schooners braved the cutoff to make the 800-mile journey from Missouri to New Mexico each year. Oregon fever. Hundreds of settlers also began migrating west on the Oregon Trail, which ran from Independence, Missouri to the Oregon Territory. The first whites to cross the continent to Oregon were missionaries such as Marcus and Narcia Whitman in 1836. At the time, the United States and Britain were locked in an argument about which country owned Oregon. To the Whitmans' great disappointment, they made few converts among the Native Americans. However, their glowing reports of Oregon's rich land began to attract other American settlers. Amazing stories spread about Oregon. The sun always shone there. Wheat grew as tall as a man. One tale claimed that pigs were running about, round and fat, already cooked with knives and forks sticking out of them, so you can just cut off a slice whenever you're hungry. Such stories tempted many people to make the 2,000-mile journey to Oregon. In 1843, nearly 1,000 people traveled to Missouri and Oregon. The next year, twice as many came. The Oregon fever has broken out, observed a Boston newspaper, and is now raging. One family heads west. The experiences of the Sager family show how difficult the trail could be. In 1844, Henry Sager and his wife and 6 children left Missouri to find cheap, fertile land in Oregon. They had already moved 4 times in the past 4 years. Henry's daughter, Catherine, explained her family's move. Father was one who was a restless man, who are not content to remain in one place very long. He began talking about going to Texas, but Mother, hearing much said about the healthfulness of your Oregon, preferred to go there. The Oregon Trail was dangerous, so pioneers joined wagon trains. They knew their survival would depend on cooperation. Before setting out on the wagon trade, members agreed to rules and to elect leaders to enforce them. Even so, life on the trail was full of hardship. The Sagers had barely begun the trip when Mrs. Sager gave birth to their 7th child. 2 months later, 9-year-old Catherine fell under a moving wagon and crushed her left leg. Later, camp fever killed both Sager parents. Even though the Sager parents had died, other families in the train cooperated to help the Sager orphans make it to Oregon. There, the Whitmans agreed to adopt them. When Narcia Whitman met them, Catherine recalled, "We thought, as we shyly looked at her, that she was the prettiest woman we had ever seen." The Mormon Trail. While most pioneers went west in search of wealth, one group migrated for religious reasons. The Mormons, who settled in Utah, were members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Joseph Smith had founded the church in upstate New York in 1830. The Mormons lived in close communities, worked hard, shared their goods, and prospered. The Mormons, though, also made enemies. Some people reacted angrily to the Mormons' teachings. They saw the Mormon practice of polygamy, allowing a man to have more than one wife at a time, as immoral. Others objected to their holding property in common. In 1844, an anti-Mormon mob in Illinois killed Smith. Brigham Young, the next Mormon leader, moved his people out of the United States. His destination was Utah, then part of Mexico. In this desolate region, he hoped his people would be left alone to follow their faith in peace. In 1847, about 1,600 Mormons followed the Oregon Trail to Utah. There they built a new settlement by the Great Salt Lake. Because Utah has little rainfall, the Mormons had to work together to build dams and canals. These structures captured water in the hills and carried it to farms in the valleys below. Though teamwork, they made their desert homeland bloom. In the meantime, changes were taking place in Texas, and as you will read in Section 2, Americans have been moving into that Mexican territory too. Main ideas. How did the mountain men open up the West for later settlement? Letter B. What are 2 examples of pioneer groups who used cooperation to overcome hardship? Letter C. What economic and social forces drew people to the West? This is the conclusion of Section 1, Trails West. God bless you, and God bless America.